Good day. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. We continue our series on wealth creation, sustainable wealth creation, how to be rich and holy. And my topic today is transforming business ideas into viable and bankable enterprises. Transforming business ideas into viable and bankable enterprise. If you have been with me, we've been talking about how to really save and invest, and that over time, almost everyone has the likelihood and the possibility of becoming a millionaire. Hence, my Millionaires Club. We have moved from financial regular savings and investment into entrepreneurship. Let me say that there are as many areas of investments as there are human needs and wants. In my little book, which is titled Investment Ideas for Almost Everyone, Investment and Self-Employment Ideas for Almost Everyone in Ghana, I list several areas, and under them, I've gotten also several possibilities, from agricultural related investments to education, health services, food making, land and real estate, construction, finance or financial services, manufacturing, small to big scale, mining, construction, as I've mentioned earlier, transport, tourism, trading, ICT related, you name it. If you take an individual person standing before you, you can even look and you get about 100 investment ideas. Why? Because they cut their hair, they may have some glasses on, so there's optometrical businesses, there's the dresses, there are underwear, there are shoes, they came with transport and everything else. However, it's not a matter of having these possibilities, but how to focus on one and translate it into a bankable business, something you can actually enter into it. And this is where many of our people get it wrong. They get an idea and they start going on it, and then they flop. They try again. Somebody goes to Dubai, he says, oh, this one was cheap. Then the next one, he goes to Dubai, he wants to do it. And on, and many have had their fingers bent. Of course, every business venture comes with risks. However, if you think through well, you reduce the risks. For example, it is known that only about 5% of businesses that start survive because of how people go about it. But if people really study what is entailed in entrepreneurship, and they do feasibility studies and write good business plans, they can increase their possibility of success right from the scratch to as high as 40%. And this is what I want to spend this session, how to move from just having an idea to having a bankable enterprise or a successful one, which you can get people to support you. The first, of course, is to have a clear picture of what you want to achieve in the future, a business vision. When you meet someone and say, I want to be rich, my friend Kakraba would like to be rich. So is Joe Bloke. That is not, everybody wants to be rich. No. In fact, if you want to know rich people, they will almost associate it with something. A rich farmer, a rich garbage collector like Zoom Lion, a rich pharmacist like Ernest Chemist, a rich, almost every area is quite a rich manufacturer of clothing. Scarcely do you get someone who is just rich without being associated with something, and that starts with a clear vision of what you want to do. For example, I want to focus in the area of financial services. I want to focus on food making, which, believe it, gives about 40% margin of those who go into it. So you must be clear. And dream, you can dream as big as possible, but for it to be a business enterprise, you must do more than just dreaming and having a vision. And I want to share with you these points, about 9 or 10 of them, as to the things that should go into your thinking process to transform your business idea or ideas into viable and sustainable businesses. Number one, there's a need to think through the opportunities and acquire as much knowledge about the field as possible. Here we are not talking about, high-level scientific knowledge. Let me give you an example. Even though I'm no longer a young man, just a youthful 77-year-old, I want to go now into real estate. I've had to spend time. Yes, I've had buildings and everything else, but if you want to go to real estate business, you must know what it entails, the risk, how to negotiate with contractors. For example, I've found that at any time, any building, if you give it a contractor, he has about 40% inbuilt margin on it. So I'm not going to go into my construction and get somebody to get 40% out of it, which means that I can build for about 60% of what they quote. I've gone to the Institution of Engineers, and I know that they have a square meter. That's what they use. But that square meter, for whether Accra Basic, Accra Medium, or Posh, these are the 3 standards they use. In each case, I can build for 50 to 60% of what the standard requires. So I have to learn about it. There's the issue of land acquisition. If you're in Accra, you may buy your land 3 times. Some friend of mine calls it, nuisance tax. You must know some areas, if you go and buy the land, it is not yours until it is yours. So you don't waste your time there. That's what I mean. I'm using the real estate, which I'm currently thinking about, what it entails. So the first is that once you have an idea of where you want to go, acquire as much knowledge about it as possible. Thinking through your opportunities and acquiring much knowledge. The second point is to investigate the market. Because you can have the most brilliant idea, the most brilliant invention. If people will not buy it, you have no business. Period. And it's important that you do a preliminary thinking. Later on, you do a market study details. But who are the people who will buy your product and your service? And why will they buy your product? Because except in few areas like the IT and the rest, the area you are going into, some people have operated there before. So you must be able to do it better, faster, quicker, deliver it more quickly, make it more convenient or cheaper. It's so important that you identify, at least initially, who are going to be your target group. Investigate the market and the people willing to pay and for what need you are going to meet so that they are willing to part with their money. The third thing I want to suggest is that you think through the challenges that you may face. One of the things that people forget is that when they are entering the business, they are talking about the profit they are going to make, this, but not about the challenges. For example, I have found, and sad to say, if you are going to manufacturing and you are in the type of products which people can steal, in Ghana, you have a formidable task, because when people talk about Abanjuma or Obiadinajuma, what they mean actually is that everybody is entitled to profit beyond their income from where they work. That is thievery and stealing. The other day I went to buy, I think from Latest Foam orthopedic mattress, and I was sad. The amount of checks, if you go to the factory, because they didn't have some in their showroom, there were about 5 stops of checking, just buying. Normally you pay it, and no, they want to check the product. And then I looked at it and I said, what a shame. In a country whereby you have to have a watchman over the watchman over the watchman. These are challenges that you want to. Again, for example, people like going to China, and China is one of the countries produces excellent products. But if you are not careful and you don't have a Chinese you hire to ensure that what you paid for is what is shipped, you will have your container coming with absolute rubbish. The quality of what you pay. So these are the type of things that you want to think through. I just heard the story of someone who wanted to import rice from India, and he didn't realize that if he didn't have the capacity to check that the actual grain quality he's paying for was the one which was shipped, and that the vessel was the correct one. So the vessel was actually arrested 3 times on the sea. And when it came to Accra, Tema rather, much of it was rotten. And they wouldn't allow him to unload. And eventually, the ship was breaking down. It was towed into the high sea and allowed to sink. And that was the end of him. Please, it is good to go into business, but let me tell you, you must think through the challenges so that it's not meant for you to run away from it, so that you will not be living in the fool's paradise. Number 4, how do you exploit the opportunities? In other words, what are the processes involved in? Are you going to buy the raw materials? What are the machines? For example, if you let's take a very simple area, that of making blocks. You know that there are not less than 10 ways of making blocks, and each one of you will cost you differently. For example, you can buy the pampan machine and you make your blocks without any electricity. Initially, you will be able to make not that many. You will make about 500 a day. But if you are starting small, that is the best way to start. A time will come when you go to the second level, whereby you have the little machine with the electricity connected. That makes a bit faster and more solid work. Then there are the 50,000 ones coming from India and Turkey and the rest. So, how you are going to exploit the opportunity must be considered. Of course, many of you listening to me will be waiting for this obvious one. Where do you get the money from? They say, Kwachi ADFA or Discanator, which I brothelize it, Kwachi ADFS or Discanators. Let's think. It all depends Oftentimes, if you have not been in business already with a track record, no bank will give you money, period. They are not there just to dish money for you. And oftentimes, you may have to dip into your own resources or family resources or an angel investor, somebody who is prepared to put a little money because you have a good idea and willing to sacrifice if you lose. And then when you start, for example, many people don't realize in Ghana that from day one, you must bank all your receipts. Even if you are going to buy cement tomorrow with it, the money must go through your bank and then you withdraw to buy. Because if you don't, you will never get a bank loan. So occasionally there's a government source, which unfortunately in Ghana, you may be able to access it when you have a bank, a party card. So you may go and get a fake party card so that you can access it, whatever it is. But it's important. Let me say that in reality, if you want to start small, you have a good thought through project. Oftentimes, you are not going to lack money. Let me congratulate the government for what it's doing. I hope that very soon interest rates will be down into the low double-digit 15%, because so long as banks are lending at the rate of 25-30%, Ghana has no future. The real sector, in economics we call it something ICO, incremental capital output ratio. I think that the real return on investment in Ghana will be in the range of about 15%. And therefore, if you are borrowing above that one, you are likely not to be able to make much out of it. But thinking through the finances will help you to start small. I have my wife and I founded a school, which is one of the biggest ones in Ghana today, private schools. But we started with 15 students in our own home. And today, it has about 2,000 students. You start small, little finance, and you build it up. And at a certain point, I could go to Barclays and Unibank, and they gave me $1.2 million loan. But it was after about 10 years. Nobody will give you big money when you start. So this is the biblical saying that he who has will more be given. So you have to think through your finances. Then comes my last four. Whom do you take along? Unless you are just a carpenter by the wayside making some 1 or 2 cupboards a month, you will need people. And even there, you may find out that you need someone, what do you call them, apprentice, to hold the pieces for you. If you are going to be successful as a business person, always you have to take some people along. And I want to mention especially 4 people you have to take along. First, you may want to look for a partner so that you share the burden of the financial burden, the possibility of loss, and everything else. The idea that people want to go solo, and they have reasons why. Hey, as for family member, they will, did you see? Then some will go to the extent, the men, fear woman and grow old. And the woman says, as for the men, you can't trust them. Let me tell you, these are cliches, and most of the time, it is meaningless. If you cannot get good partners, it means over the years, you have not cultivated good relationships. I just mentioned my wife and I, social enterprise of Ghana Christian International High School. I went to a friend of mine. Before I could get the loan of $1.2 million, I said that, per chance, do you have $60,000? He says, what are you going to do it for? Use it for? I say, to help expand the school we have started. He just went in and gave me a check of $60,000 without even a piece of paper to that. Of course, we have been friends for about 20 years. There was the credibility. And thank God, he was paid back. Even with an annual interest before it was fully paid of 5% on the dollar investment. So you must take along carefully selected partners. Second, you may need a mentor if you're especially a young person, someone who can tell you the truth, not because he wants to exploit you, but because he wants your best. And that is as important. You need mentors. Very soon, if you are registering a company, if it's not an individual or a one-man business, but properly incorporated, you may need directors. And the company law requires 2 directors. Oftentimes, the tendency is that me and my wife, me and my husband, it's our business. No. It is to your advantage to look for directors who do not have emotional attachment and can tell you the truth. And oftentimes, if you have been what you want to be, you will get directors, mature people, bankers, business people, even professors in the university near you who are prepared to be your directors without charging you a fee. Because they would like to see you succeed. Of course, if you do succeed, don't forget them. Let their Christmas hampers cover all the fees they should have paid. This is a hint in case you want me to be your director. On a more serious note, you need directors are people that can say the old chakwai. The one who is making the path does not know that he has a crooked back. The people who advise you. And finally, as your business grows, you need employees. As much as many of them will let you down, you cannot go far alone. And we will spend some more time with these details. After you have done all these things, you must validate your initial thoughts to say, now that I've looked at all these things, is it worth going on? Can I do it? Of course, you must know that business involves risk. Last but not the least, you must assess the profitability of your proposal. Unless you are going to be a philanthropist, business is to make profit. And like an economist, Friedman, he says that the first corporate social responsibility of any enterprise is to make profit. There are Ghanaians who think that when there's a bank in their area or a business, then they can go and beg for things. No, they have to make profit. And out of their profit, they can, of course, decide to be generous. But that's your first responsibility. Above all, you have to put all these together into what we call a business plan. A business plan, people think that it's a huge technical document. It is a way of helping you to think through what you want to do. What is the area? What are the processes? Is there a market for it? What's the cost of setting it up? Will I get some people to buy it? Will it be profitable? What is the gestation period? How long will it be before income starts coming in? And can I sustain it? A business plan is just that, and how you will finance it and repay any loan or other sources of money. And once you have done that, and you have checked the internal consistency, you are ready to move ahead. Shalom, and may the Lord be with you. And every week, you will meet me on ZFM 99.7, ZFM 99.7, and also on YouTube. Thank you.